supply chain,
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 supply chain.
Supply Chain Management with GDP Season 2, and this time it's bigger and it's better. We will pick up from where we left off and continue to discuss industry best practices, current affairs, effective leadership, and the latest innovations in the world of supply chain. The podcast is aimed at explaining the concepts of supply chain in the leanest way possible, one of the most efficient shows where you will listen to me covering through various important topics across the supply chain domain. I'm your host, Gagandeep Prabhu, currently working at Ernst & Young in their supply chain and operations consulting practice. So let's just jump right into it then.
A linear supply chain describes a straight path from raw materials to production and disposal. When a new product comes out, the old ones are discarded in a landfill. Leftover raw materials are also disposed in a similar way. This is not the most cost-effective approach or a sustainable approach. A circular supply chain, on the other hand, is where the raw materials used are recycled back into the manufacturing operation. They get to be repurposed into the production of another process or product. The goal of a circular supply chain is to eliminate or reduce waste while also reducing environmental impact associated with a traditional supply chain. Businesses that utilize a circular supply chain are utilizing the discarded products to manufacture new ones. It is basic recycling. You use recycled old materials instead of new ones and save money in that process. Many companies have adopted circular supply chain or are building strategy to adopt this in the future. For example, leading sportswear producer Nike launched a host of circular products a couple of years ago, including a footwear collection made from factory and post-consumer waste. They claim 71% of their footwear is actually made with materials recycled from its own manufacturing process, which is pretty awesome if you think about it. All this going into the landfill, instead making more products, not just sustainable, but also improves your profitability as well as increases your revenue on the same raw products that you are going to toss away. Alternatively, there are business models where consumers can lease the items until the end of its use and then return the product back so that the supply chain can make new items from old material. IKEA, the big Swedish furniture company, kicked off a large-scale furniture buyback program on Black Friday in 2020. Where available, customers could receive up to 50% of an item's original price in the form of a store voucher. Items not resold were to be recycled or donated to the local community projects, according to the company. Many more companies like Adidas, H&M, Dell, HP have adopted this method of supply chain. The last company that I used to work at, Dell EMC, we started the Apex program where we started leasing hardware instead of selling it, where we would take this hardware back after a 1-year or a 3-year contract, which is pretty awesome. It's cyclic as well as sustainable to the supply chain. Needless to say, this adds immense value when implemented in the right way. The move towards circular supply chain by organizations is also supported by international regulations. For example, the California Recycled Content Laws. California requires manufacturers to recycle 25% of their plastic containers. The European Union Packaging Directive. All countries in the EU should recycle 50% of their packaging waste or incinerate them to provide energy. The Japanese recycling laws. In Japan, businesses are responsible for recycling packaging material. However, this is easier said than done, because in theory, this looks very simple. But the decision to reuse, refurbish, remanufacture, or recycle is crucial in building a circular economy. There are still items that can't be salvaged, and for those, close to 40% are still discarded rather than recycled. There are barriers to adopting circular supply chains such as cultural, financial, governmental, technological, knowledge, and skills, which act as a major stepping stone towards establishing a circular supply chain. When companies have built and optimized their supply chain with specialized parts to improve efficiency and performance, This is when changing a business model can be expensive. Companies have to set up collection systems to facilitate recycling and remanufacturing and cut back on some of their existing practices. But technological developments can help with the transition to a circular supply chain. And in the long run, this process can actually significantly be more economical. The initial investment required causes companies to ignore opportunity to reuse materials. But once processes are in place, companies spend less money on the raw materials, help the environment, which can result in so many government incentives that I mentioned and much more, and also increase customer satisfaction. Meanwhile, being good to the environment and the only home for us, Earth. Circular supply chains turn waste into opportunities, and this is the future that we all should be moving towards. Thank you for listening to another episode of Supply Chain with GDP. If you haven't subscribed to the podcast, please do. Share this podcast and tell your friend about it. If not, if they are in supply chain, talk to them about circular supply chain and how it will make supply chain more sustainable. Thank you and good night.